Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Fran, I'm from Venezuela, and today we're going to be reacting to a video called Australian Culture Shock. I'm guessing it's something having to do with with like a foreigner's point of view. Foreigner that came to live in Australia and like things that they found shocking, either like good or bad. I don't know. So don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe down below. And let's hit play.
What's going on, guys? I'm Pete from Aussie English. Welcome to this episode today where I'm going to be talking about culture shock in Australia. Let's get into it. Alright, so I was recently chatting to my wife, trying to come up with
I'm guessing,
a list of
his wife
things
is
that
not
she
from
had
Australia.
culture shock with when she came to Australia. So if you don't know, my wife is originally from Brazil.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Hakel, if you're watching. And so she came to Australia, and obviously Brazil is a different country, different culture.
Yeah.
When she got to Australia...
Because I know that countries that are close to each other, like neighbor countries, they share a lot of similarities. Like Australia and New Zealand, probably they share a lot of culture. Obviously, each country has its own like singularities, and they are different. But I'm also guessing that a lot of things are similar, just in the same way as I don't know, like United Kingdom, well, England and Ireland. Obviously, like each country has its own thing, but they're similar just because they're close to each other, and just by nature they're gonna be similar. But if you're from Brazil, that's literally the other side of the world. So I'm guessing things are gonna be quite different there.
There were a bunch of different
from your
things
perspective
that she found strange, cultural aspects of Australian life that she found different.
Yeah, it's
weird,
gonna be shocking
strange.
and,
So I made a list,
strange for her.
and now
Obviously,
let's go through 10
just
of
as if
those
an
things,
Australian
okay?
came
And
to
let me
Brazil,
know in
they're
the
gonna
comments
find a lot
below
of things
if
weird.
You found them weird as well. All right. Number one, cars are incredibly cheap secondhand in Australia.
So everyone owns a car in Australia.
Are actually really expensive when they're new, at least as far as I know, comparatively speaking, especially if you get into luxury cars.
I think luxury cars tend to be
European luxury cars like Mercedes,
expensive almost everywhere in the world. I think that's like a universal thing. I don't know, like, is there a place where you can get like a new Mercedes, for like a cheap price? I don't know. I think there's like little countries where that can happen.
You an Audi. In Australia, we used to have the Ford and Holden
and Ford is
manufacturers
pretty affordable
building the cars in Australia. They no longer do that.
Oh, okay.
When they did that, though, the government put tax on any cars that were luxury cars more than $60,000.
Oh my God,
and so
that's
you'll
so
find
much.
that a lot of these cars from overseas, the luxury cars, especially those from Europe, will be very expensive compared to other places in the world.
But it's just because it has like a luxury tax.
Cars were incredibly cheap.
But I think there's some
in
items
Brazil,
that actually do
cars,
that.
whether new or secondhand, are apparently much more expensive, relatively speaking, than they are here. For instance, when I bought my secondhand Ford Falcon that I got recently, I recently gave it away though, but when I bought that secondhand, it was about 12 years old, and it cost me $3,000. When I
that's
bought
actually,
my
it's really
first
cheap.
Holden wagon, again, it was about 18 years old, and it cost me $2,500.
I love it. It's like, it looks like
it wasn't very much at all. So there you go.
Like
in Australia, cars, if they're secondhand,
like a Beetle, not Beetle the car, like
cheap.
an actual Beetle.
Number two, cuts of meat. This is one that totally caught me by surprise.
I think
had never thought about this.
I think actually I recently learned that cuts of meat have different names in different places. I don't know why it didn't really occur to me before, but I don't really eat meat, so I've never really like buy meat, and I've never done that. But I don't know why I thought that things were just like the name is the same. But recently I learned that each country has, and each place has its own like name for each different like cut of meat. So cuts of meat are very different, like depending on the country or the place where you are. It's not like a universal thing where you can just be like, I don't know, I want like, I don't know, a chicken thigh. Well, chicken thighs are obviously going to be the same everywhere, but it's specific like cuts of meat. I know they're different in depending on where you are, and I didn't really know that. That's so weird.
But the cuts of meat in Australia are very different from how they are in Brazil. One example was when I was looking up how to do Brazilian barbecues in Australia. I wanted to buy some meat and I wanted to try and do them authentically Brazil
What's the
style,
difference between a
churrasco.
Brazilian
I tried to get
barbecue
the
and an
cut of
Australian
meat
barbecue?
for picanha. Picanha is a style
Picanha,
of
okay.
Brazilian barbecue where they buy the rump part of the
Okay, the rump.
beef, like from the bull, right? And they put salt on it. There's fat on the beef, and they do it on a barbecue. I tried to go and get this, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I couldn't find the picanha cut of meat.
Yeah, because
any
probably
different
it's something
butchers
that
I
you
went
only
to.
get in Brazil.
So I had to
Or
specifically ask them
maybe
to get the
it's something that
entire
has its own name in Australia, but it's different name. And it's not something that you're used to, so you never really like ask for it because you don't really know what it's called.
part of the cow that they normally chop up into different cuts and remove that part for me to then use, because actually for them they would chop it up.
He
and
had
use
to
it
like
as porterhouse
customize
steaks,
its
which were
own
cut
its own like cut of
through that
meat.
slice of meat, usually like this, as opposed to taking out the whole section, the rump section, and using that instead. So I had no idea that the cuts of meat in Australia are very different from those in Brazil. And if you want to get the certain cuts of meat that you want to use from other cultures, other countries, you might have to go and specifically ask a butcher to cut them for you. Number 3, toilet paper.
Oh, toilet paper is different.
Toilet paper. So I was aware that toilet paper isn't a universal thing when I went to
See,
Southeast Asia
I didn't know
the
that.
first
I
time.
thought
I went
toilet
to
paper is universal.
Indonesia, where some of the motels and hotels would have toilet paper because I guess they were used to
I guess they use
foreigners from the West
bidets.
coming to Indonesia.
Or no?
But a lot of the time they had a hole in the ground and a bucket of water that you would use to wash yourself.
Okay,
Makes
so
sense,
like
but in Australia we use
like a latrine, I think they're called. That's what
toilet paper.
they used to do
One
before
thing
in
that was
other
shocking
countries,
to
right?
tell was the fact that in Australia you can flush toilet paper
Oh,
down the
because
toilet. Because in Brazil
they
the
can't.
sewer
Yeah,
system
probably.
isn't set
Yeah,
up to
because
be-
you can't flush toilet paper because it gets clogged. So obviously, like you can't really do that. And I think that's not a universal thing. There are places where they'll tell you like, please don't flush the toilet paper because it's gonna clog the toilet.
able to handle flushing of toilet
Yeah,
paper.
you can't
so
handle
instead
it.
of flushing
Yeah.
it, you have to put it in a bin next to the toilet and empty that every day. So there you go. Toilet paper was one of those strange things in Australia that you can flush down the toilet.
And I think also in Australia,
4.
the toilet flushes to the other side. I think that's the thing, right? The famous thing that I think it's in the rest of the world. I think they clog it like they flush it like when you flush it, it's like to the left side, and in Australia, I think it's to the right side, something like that.
Coffee culture in Australia. Any of you guys who have come to Australia and spent a significant amount of time in some of the big cities in particular, like Sydney and Melbourne, will know that we are mental. We
Well,
are
yeah, but
crazy
from a
about
Brazilian
our
perspective,
coffee. We take
like
that
Brazilians
stuff
have good
seriously.
coffee, right?
There are
I think
probably
a lot of places
hundreds
have very good
of
coffee.
cafes in the CBDs
And they're
of
also
Sydney
mental about their
and Melbourne
coffee.
alone. The
I know, I
quality
am.
of the beans that are used, the variety of different coffees
Oh,
that you
okay,
can
so I
get,
didn't know they were
and the artisanry that is used, the skill
They do
with which
produce
people
your own
are trained up
coffee.
to make the coffee is pretty much as good as it ever gets anywhere in the world. At least I'm told, right? I used to work in a cafe, and that was one of the
Well,
things
of course,
they
in Australia
prided
would say that,
themselves
right?
on, the quality of their
Each
coffee.
like if
So
you ask
maybe
someone like from I don't know from another place in the world, they're also going to be like, we are very proud about our coffee. No, but I love that it's just like you're pleasantly surprised about the coffee's quality. Like you're expecting something bad, but I was pleasantly surprised. It's actually pretty good. I wasn't expecting
come
it
to
to be
Australia,
bad. Like why would I?
Coffee is very, very good. Not everywhere, but in a lot of places.
Yeah, I'm guessing
Probably
like
not very good if you go to Starbucks.
the
Like
artisanal
American style
like
and
coffee, artisanal
Americans,
coffee. It's good.
They have their own way of doing coffee.
Yeah, not Starbucks,
Number 5.
obviously. And also, like it tastes the
Barbecues
same
at camping
everywhere, right?
grounds and at the beach. So again, I grew up in Australia. I used to go camping all the time, several times a year with my parents. We would go to
See,
places
I
in the
love
bush,
it because it's like
forests,
the
national parks,
the
places
stereotype
like
of like the chill Australian that spends like half his life like outdoors and doing outdoorsy activities like going to the beach and hiking and camping. I love it.
Wilson's Promontory in Victoria. Every time
That's
you go
a
to those
beautiful
places, there
beach.
tend to be places where you can barbecue food, you can cook food.
Yeah.
Quite often they have gas, you might have to put some money in there to be able to use the gas. Maybe you have to bring your own fuel for the barbecue, you know, there might be some places, campsites where you have to make the fire yourself.
Yeah,
But pretty much
yeah.
every campsite you go
Because
to
I've seen that, like, to me that's normal, but I've never seen one that has like like the gas thingy, like you have to make your own fire, but the structure, like the barbecue thingy, like it's there. So to me that's not that weird, and I actually thought that was like the norm
some
for
kind of barbecue
a lot
for
of
you
countries.
to cook food. And it's the same for a lot of beaches.
Yeah,
that
in the
have
beach,
tourist
like there's
spots
so
where
many
people
places
come
that
large
in
numbers
different
and
places
they
of the
wanna have
world that
food.
they have
So there's
their barbecues like on the beach, because it's very like beach culture. I think that you just like make your own barbecue when you're spending like a few days on the beach, or maybe like a beach day, and you make your own barbecue. But I didn't know that was just like a thing that only happened in certain places. So like in
everywhere.
Brazil, that's
This
not a
was
thing.
something
That's
Kel
weird to
found
me.
really strange, and it wasn't the cultural norm
Oh,
in
that's
Brazil
really
for you to
interesting.
go to camping grounds or to beaches.
So what do
and
they
find
do
places
when
to
they're
just barbecue
camping
your own
and when
food.
they're
If you
I don't
wanted
know
to
at
do
the
that,
beach?
you'd have to bring your own. BYO Barbie. In Australia,
Okay.
you don't have to.
Yeah.
Number 6, and this is one that Brazilians always tell me whenever I meet them. Our second-hand culture in Australia
Oh,
is
they do
different
like
from Brazil, probably elsewhere in the world as well.
Okay, so
So
let's
what
see.
happens if I have a couch in my house that I don't want anymore? I don't just throw it out. I don't just give it away to friends, although, you know, you could do that if you wanted. Quite often what will be done is it'll be taken outside, put on the nature strip with some cardboard that says free. And so people
Oh.
know that if they see junk or chairs, TVs, furniture, all that sort of stuff, if they see that in the nature strip out the front of someone's house, they know that it's free. Someone can take that. That it's free to
Oh,
a good home. That
okay.
anyone can come and pick that up.
I love that. I love secondhand things. I think that you can find like great things, and I've done it before. But usually I've done it with like friends and like family members, or yeah, just like people that like they give you things like, I don't know, I'm not using this, like go ahead. Or in garage sales, obviously that's a thing. I actually have I have a lot of things from garage sales as well. But I love the fact that you can just like, I don't know, it's you think it's trash, but it isn't. You can just like grab it. But also my dad, I know that he's like he used to like do a lot of those things, like when he was like driving by, and because I know that some people actually do that. They don't like specifically say like free, you can take this, but they throw away things that are actually like in a very good shape, or maybe they just need some love, but they don't really want to like repair, like a table. Like it's a wooden table that they're not using, and they'll just like put it in the trash. And people think like, oh, I'm not gonna grab that because I don't know, someone threw it away. So I'm guessing like it's not fit for like use. But my dad's one of those people who like, no, I'm seeing a table and it's someone threw it away, but it's in good shape. Like why wouldn't I grab it? And so I grew up with that culture, and I've done it before. Like when I'm driving past someone that just like threw garbage away, I'm like, let's see if like some things here like are worth it. So I love
Take
it.
it home, and we do that all the time. A lot of the stuff that we have in our house is either bought secondhand
Yeah,
online
see?
through places
Yeah.
like Gumtree or Facebook, or we've seen it on the side of the road and thought we don't want to waste that. We want to
It's
use
the
it.
thing,
So
I
let's
think it's very wasteful. And if you can like, if you're driving by and you see something that has potential, like why not just grab it? Yes, we have to like work in order to be like less wasteful, because we only have one
bring
planet.
it home and use it.
And,
that's
just like
something you
trash, it
notice in Australia
accumulates.
quite a
Like,
lot.
why wouldn't
When
you?
drive around the streets, there'll be furniture on nature strips.
But I love
there'll
it,
be
the fact that it's
secondhand
actually
stuff,
like
and it's
furniture,
free to
not
be
just
picked up.
like a chair, or I don't know, it's actually like TVs and I don't know what else, like actual furniture, like a couch. Like that's so weird. I love it. I wish more countries would do that, actually.
Drinking water from the tap. This was another one
tap
that
water,
shocked
yeah.
me quite a lot because it's something I take for granted that the water
You really shouldn't
water
take
system
it
that gets brought to
for
our
granted,
houses.
because I know there's a lot of places in a lot of countries that you also, when you visit a new country, you always have to ask, like, is tap water safe? You don't want to get sick. But it's not, you shouldn't really take that for granted, because a lot of places, that's why bottled water is a thing. And you always, when you travel, this is a good tip, when you travel to a new country, always ask if you can drink the tap water.
Is drinkable. You can drink the water out of the shower, when you're having a bath, you can drink any of the water that comes out of the pipes in your house. Generally,
and sometimes
right?
it also
Should be
depends
all
on the
good.
city.
That is
Like,
the
not
case
all
elsewhere in the
countries
world. Quite
are
often when
like,
I was
not every
traveling
city in
Southeast Asia,
every
that
country
would
is the same.
definitely not be something that foreigners like me should do, because we would
Of course,
quite often end up with sickness, end up on the toilet, riding the porcelain throne for quite a few days.
Yeah, I know South Asia is very you have to drink bottled water if you're not from there.
We put chlorine in the water to kill everything. There's fluoride in there too for your teeth. So that was something that really shocked me. Elsewhere in the world, you may not be able to drink.
You always
out of
have
the
to
taps.
ask.
I
think
in
it's
Brazil, they quite often have purifiers for their water next to their sinks in their kitchens. In Australia, you won't see those things. There may be purifiers on the taps themselves, or people may have some kind of equipment in the fridge, a jug that purifies the water. But generally, anywhere in Australia that has flowing water that comes out of taps, it's fine to drink, unless it says otherwise.
Unless explicitly stated.
And I'm totally guilty of this. Leaving things unlocked.
Oh.
So we live in Ocean Grove, which is a seaside town.
I'm guessing it's like a very
coast,
safe country.
About an hour and a half away from Melbourne. And quite often, I leave the doors unlocked in the house. I leave my car unlocked.
See, because they're so
Tends to be a very
friendly and
safe
everything's
place.
like
There's very
very
little robbery,
chill and laid
there's very little
back.
criminality taking place in Ocean Grove. Most places in Australia tend to be pretty safe, and you won't see things like massive locks on doors, grills protecting windows and doors, and people leaving their cars and their houses unlocked. Don't get me wrong, I definitely lock it from time to time when I'm going away.
I love the fact that he said, from time to time I actually do it, but I think in most countries, like, no, that's weird. The norm is you have to close it.
Doors open, or you would go to bed and have the gauze doors shut at night, which could just be opened to let air in. She would find that very strange that they would not be locked, and also that you wouldn't lock your car.
That's weird to me.
Number
like,
9,
please lock your car.
Walking the streets
That's weird.
at night. So when I met my wife, I was living in Melbourne, in North Melbourne, and quite often I would be busy during the day studying, and then I would go to the gym, I would go and do jiu-jitsu, I would come home, and at maybe 10 or 11 o'clock at night, I would go for a run, or I'd go for a walk, listen to a podcast, and just walk around the streets. I would walk through some of the parks, like Royal Park or Princes Park, and I'd be like, it's not a problem. That was a massive no-no for Kel. That was something that she would never, ever, ever do, because in Brazil, it's relatively unsafe to walk around by yourself at night, especially in places like parks where there's no
you know
light.
what? I'm going to say something. It's probably because she's a woman. And, women, we tend to be a lot more careful about those things at men. Because,
that was something that kind of shocked me as well. I was like,
I think usually women tend to be a
Australia.
little more
It's pretty
cautious
safe.
about
You
it.
can
Men
sort of
tend to
walk
be
around
more
anywhere and it's,
we don't
you're
care.
fine.
But yeah,
Obviously,
that's
we have
sad.
our own fair share of crime, and sometimes bad things do happen to people, but usually you can walk around at night, especially in somewhere like a CBD, a city like Melbourne or Sydney, and you're perfectly safe. So that was something that she found very
and I'm
strange.
guessing also
that
like
was a big culture shock.
Nightlife and people are like walking down the street at like 11 and 12. Like, it's probably a city that like falls asleep late.
Her when she found out that I would sometimes go for a walk around midnight throughout Melbourne, throughout the parks, with music in my ears or listening to a podcast, for an hour or so, and it was no big deal. But yeah, there you go. Number 10, guys, the very last one for this episode in Australia is that there is very little rubbish or littering in Australia compared to a lot of other countries. Culturally, this is a big no-no. So I cringe every time I see someone smoking who throws their cigarette butt on the
that's
ground,
bad.
because
Please,
usually there's
please.
a bin with
If you're smoking, please, like, don't leave like the cigarette stuff
walking
and the
distance,
ashes
they
over
could
there.
just
Like,
put the
please do
cigarette
not.
out and throw it in the bin. The same with throwing newspapers
No, that's
or
gross. Don't
any
do
kind
that.
of rubbish, bottles, whatever it is, on the ground. That tends to be a very big social no-no.
I love it. Like we should bring back shame. And if people do it, and when if you see someone that's like throwing garbage and they're like bottles and stuff like that, to the floor, and like please, like let them know and be like, please don't do that. I've done it before actually.
So in Australia, littering, it occurs.
It's probably like a crime. I think littering is actually like
no.
Well, he's saying like it's socially the norm, but I think I love it. Yeah, but I think there are some places where it's actually like prohibited. Like you can't really do that. They'll find you, and I think it's a good thing.
So that's it for this episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed
that
it.
was
Make
it.
sure to let me know down in the comments below if you have another piece of cultural shock, another thing that shocked you about Australian culture when you came here, because I'm sure that I haven't included everything that is a bit shocking about Australian culture. So I'll see you in the comments, guys, and for everything else about Australia, Australian English, history and culture, make sure to subscribe to my channel, press the notification button, and also
I
check
think
out
probably the things that surprised me the most, but in a good way, are how conscious they are about each other, like as a society. I think it says a lot about them, because when you look at it like that, the whole littering thing and the whole like leaving things like outside of the curve for other people to take, it says a lot about how you think about other people that live in the same society as you, because you want to be helpful, right? I think all comes down to it. And the littering thing, it's about the planet and taking care of the planet. So those things definitely surprised me in a very good way. And the coffee. I want to try Australian coffee now because he spoke so highly of it. So now if I see like Australian coffee, I'm going to be like, yes, of course I want that. But that was it for today. I'll see you next time. Bye.